Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Daniel McGuire here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about last minute preparations for the PE exam, the professional engineering exam that occurs currently twice a year if you are taking a written exam, or every month if you're taking a computer-based exam. So with that, be sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Any questions you might have, be sure to leave them in the comment section. But without further ado, let's get to it. Now, before I continue on to preparing for the exam itself, you should understand how the exam should be distributed from here on out. So 2021, at least from what I've been seeing from the NCEES website, will be the final year where a lot of exams are going to be still based out of paper pencil. They're all going to be transitioning to computer-based exams. So you have to consider that as well, because they will no longer be offered twice a year as they were with the paper pencil. They're going to be offered much more frequently in computer-based exams in testing rooms and testing locations all over the cities that you may be living in, all over the states. So again, there's going to be transitioning from the paper-based exams to computer-based exams. It's going to be a little more expensive to take the exams as well, but again, they will no longer be limited to twice a year as they have been in the past for paper pencil exams. So the first piece of advice that I could give you is if you haven't started studying 5-6 weeks out, that you should really start hitting the books, because it is so much material and a lot of content to cover in a short amount of time to begin with. So start studying if you haven't already, especially when you start reviewing the material for the depth portion in the afternoon section. It's a lot of content, a lot of material that is going to require you to use a lot of different information from different portions of your resource materials and your reference manuals. Again, you're not going to just have one equation to solve one answer and then boom, there's your answer. That's more of the AM for the breadth section, and it's again just testing the general ability that you have to understand the engineering concepts of your exam. The PM section is much more layered, so that's the one you're going to really have to spend a lot of time on. But again, also consider the fact that it's a 80 question exam, 40 in the morning and 40 in the afternoon. So if you really feel that you just want to hammer in the morning and just completely study to a T all of the breadth content, go ahead. But again, you still have 40 questions in the afternoon. So if you don't study any of the depth portion, you're really going to be in a lot of trouble. So the depth portion in the afternoon is going to be a little more, again, it's going to be very complicated. It's going to be a lot more difficult to actually understand the material. It's a lot more nuanced problems. But if you understand the PM section, you should be able to understand the AM questions that pertain to that. For example, I was a water resource engineering exam. That's the one I took. So when I studied my PM section for my depth, the AM section questions were very easy, very straightforward for the 5 or 6 hydrology-based questions that I did receive. And that's the same concept that you would be applying if you were to take the structural exam for civil, if you were to be taking the geotechnical, if you were to take the transportation. The AM section would be generally a lot easier for the questions that pertain to the PM related section and materials. Now, another thing that I would recommend is getting to understand the calculator that you are using. First, you should look at the calculators that are allowed in the exam room themselves from the NCEES website, which I will be linking down below. So be sure you understand which calculators are allowed and which one aren't. They don't allow graphing calculators, at least I don't think they do, last I checked. But again, understand what calculator you can use. I had the TI-30 as my backup. I used my TI-36 Pro as my main calculator because it has the ability to solve for equations with different variables. So if you have 2 equations, 2 unknowns, it could, you could set them equal to each other and start guessing. It interpolates the values, and it makes interpolating questions a lot easier because you just plug it into the calculator and it solves it for you, which I think was a very, very big time saver for me. And even if you could save 4 minutes on a question on average, and you maybe have like 3 interpolation questions, that's 12 minutes that you ended up saving that you could use on another question that you have to be a lot more research into. You have to go through your manuals a little bit longer. So understand the calculators that you are allowed to be used. Understand the test material that is allowed and isn't allowed. Again, the electronics in the exam are completely forbidden. Your phones, you have to leave them at the front. If you are taking them in a testing facility, you have to leave them at the front. You can't bring them to your seat with you. No electronic devices, not even calculators, or excuse me, not even watches, unless they are your standard watch with no electronic function. So an Apple Watch, any other type of smartwatch, not allowed. They catch you with it after the exam begins, you will be disqualified. I've seen this happen. And again, don't even risk it. Somebody had their phone with them and they ended up getting disqualified even though it was off and it was in their back pocket. It was in their backpack and they didn't even have it with them, but the proctor noticed it and kicked them out of the exam. So don't even risk it. Leave everything as far away from you as you can. I recommend leaving it in your car if you did drive down to the exam. But yeah, don't risk it. Understand what is allowed and what isn't allowed in the exam. But again, definitely know what calculator you can use. And again, don't just get the most expensive calculator that they allow and never use it, because then you're not going to know the functions and how to use it. So understand your calculator and really try to figure out how to use it, how to can save time for you, and Don't bring anything that you're not allowed to take into the exam. I would also recommend reading the questions very thoroughly. I know this sounds obvious and a lot of people will just, oh, well, obviously you have to read the questions. Really try and understand the questions, because sometimes you'll read them initially and then you'll think it's one equation, you use that equation, you get the answer that's on there. But then you'll go back and read it after you've gone through maybe 3 or 4 more questions, and then you understand, well, it's not asking specifically for this variable, it could be asking for a different variable. Really understand that, really try to piece it together and take your time, especially for the PM and the depth. The equations that are given for those type of problems are very layered, and there's a lot of different variables that can be used. So maybe you could be solving for the weight of a particular atom, but it's not asking for that, it's asking for the weight of the entire solution or something along those lines. Just really try and understand the questions they're asking. Look through your reference manuals as much as you can, because it's going to save you time. And on that note, in terms of tabbing your materials that you are allowed to bring into the exam, tabbing saves you a great amount of time, don't get me wrong. But if you don't know where your tabs are, if you just have like hundreds of tabs in your materials and you don't really know where everything is off the top of your head, and you don't know where to find a particular equation, maybe like for a vertical curve, for horizontal alignments or vertical alignments, and you don't know exactly where that is, just go to your index, flip it open, vertical curve, see what section it is, horizontal alignment, boom, find it. There's no real harm in doing that. I've seen, you know, or I've heard of other people going through all individual like 100 or so tabs, and then they finally find it, they flip to it, and it's not exactly what they need, and then go into the index anyway and just wasting their time. So if you know exactly where all of your materials are in your index pre-tabbed, then definitely that's going to save you time. But if you don't, there's no harm in going to the index, popping it open, going to what you need, and going to the equations that you might need, and going on with your day. Okay, the last piece of advice that I could give is to go in as relaxed as you possibly can, get a good night's sleep, hydrate, bring water.